Hi, Rob.
Hi, John. How are you?
Pretty good, thanks. And yourself?
Pretty good. I got AJ and Rob Multaney here with me.
Okay,
Hello,
good.
John.
Hi, AG. And who else was with you?
Rob Multaney.
It's just
Rob or Bob?
Rob.
Bob, okay, thank you.
Can you see me, John?
Darlene speaking.
Yeah, I can see you fine.
Okay, perfect.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. It's Darlene speaking.
Hi, darling.
I just want to let everybody know that we will be streaming live in a matter of moments.
Okay,
We do this a little bit earlier just in order to ensure that everything goes smoothly. So
Good.
I just want to give everybody a pre-warning that we will be live in how many minutes, Reza? We'll be live in, oh, it's already gone live. Okay, so I just wanted to give that announcement to everybody, and we'll be starting at 6 o'clock.
thanks, Darlene.
You're welcome.
For those of you that are showing your name as Darlene Lombardi, are you able to change your names so we know who you are? Thanks.
Hey, Casey, I didn't realize. I was trying to look for where I was on here, but I couldn't find myself.
You have to briefly turn your camera on and make a guest appearance to figure out which one you are.
Got it.
Yeah, I think one Darlene Lombard is enough, huh? Hi, Sean.
Hi, Counselor. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I think we could actually use a couple more Darlene Lombardis.
Yeah.
That's very sweet to say. Thank you.
Oh, okay, now they'll hear you. Okay, better.
There's one person labeled as Darlene Lombardi and there's not a microphone showing, so my fear is that we won't be able to hear you.
Need to
You see, I'm noticing that that individual doesn't have a microphone, and I think they just hopped out of it. So maybe they're having some difficulties.
Okay, so hopefully they'll come back in again.
Yes. Are we still waiting for more people to come on board? I know we still have 6 minutes, but
I believe we're still waiting for the agent, Nick Wood.
okay.
And Councillor Sluss as well.
Correct.
Okay, we have a few moments yet, so we'll just give it a moment.
Can anybody hear me? It's Miguel Barassa calling.
Yes, I can, Miguel.
Is there a visual needed for me, or do, like, I don't really know what to do to go on the screen, but I don't even know if it's necessary.
Mr. Barassa, it's Darlene Lombardi speaking.
Hello.
It's not necessary for you to have a camera on screen.
Okay.
We will be listening to all the presentations that take place. And as I indicated previously, we're going to have a question and answer period at the very end.
Okay.
And at that time, you'll be able to answer or ask your questions. And I'll be navigating the question and answer period. Okay, as we do have 5 attendees that would also like to ask questions as well.
Okay.
Okay.
I've already talked to Rob
Yes.
earlier, and then he's answered some of my questions, but I don't know. That's why I wasn't sure if my questions were on the agenda. That's why I asked about that. But you know, once the presentation is finished, then I may ask it. So I'll go and mute myself again so I don't interrupt the presentations.
Wonderful. Thanks, Mr. Barassa.
Okay.
Miguel, before you put yourself on mute, it's always useful to have residents listen to each other. They may raise, others may raise in questions that you may not. So I urge you to stay on as long as you can, and just emphasize that your responses and input is valuable, like it is for all the residents in the area. Okay, so thank you for being here.
My pleasure. And I know I've talked to both of you
Yes,
a couple of times. So
yeah,
thank you.
you're most welcome. Hi, John.
How you doing, John? Hi, everybody.
You better change your name, John.
Oh,
Hi,
come
Nick.
on.
Hey, counselors.
I changed myself. I'm now called Darlene.
If you leave your name as Darlene, I'm going to have a whole bunch of work for you tomorrow.
You're not busy enough.
She sure is.
Yeah, exactly. I know, I'm bugging her like crazy.
That's all right, Nick. That's all right.
I appreciate that.
Anytime.
I try to do it strategically as much as possible so I don't overrun you, but we do appreciate it, all the work you do.
Thank you very much.
Carol Sillers, if you can hear me, I just want to say thank you for sending in your concerns about the deer in Waterworks Park. There's quite a few residents that have expressed their disgust at what's going on there. So, and then we've got, let's see if we can get Ministry of Natural Resources to patrol the area.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Darlene, do we have any idea how many members of the public are signed in?
Yes, we do, Counselor. We have 6 attendees who will be asking questions during the question and answer period.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Casey, if everybody's on board, we're ready to start. We have 2 minutes. We are live on YouTube, and we can start at any time you would like.
Okay, we'll start in just a minute. I'm wondering, Nick, if you could change your display name. It's showing Darlene's name.
Is it?
I can do that for you, Nick, if you don't know how.
Yeah, I think I have no idea that it's doing that. So I apologize.
I think he was getting pretty comfortable being called Darlene. I don't know.
I've been called worse, so it's that would be a step in the right direction, I think. Thank you.
I'll tell you, that's a pretty common name, this Darlene.
It is tonight for sure.
So Councillor Sless, I believe it was you that was going to lead us off. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was gonna wait till 6. It's 5:59 now
Yep,
to make
that's
sure
fine.
that everybody wanted to is here.
Perfect.
We have one other Darlene Lombardi that doesn't look like Darlene. Sir, if you could change your name, please. Just double click on the
On the right.
on the name, and then you can just type in your name.
Maybe Darlene could give the gentleman a hand.
I certainly can. And I don't know your name. I apologize. Who am I changing?
I'm not sure. It's showing up
Could
as
you
Darlene
unmute
Lombardi.
yourself, please?
Yeah, his mute button is on. I think he's working on it.
Yeah.
You're muted, sir.
Just give me a second. So my name is Nikolai, I'm the architect.
Yeah, so he's the group's architect. He's going to be speaking.
Okay.
So-
Okay.
So I have to write my name somewhere, or?
If you double click on where it says Darlene Lombardi, it enables you to rename yourself.
Put the
Okay,
cursor
okay.
on. Put the cursor on Darlene Lombardi on your screen.
Just let me find first Darlene. Where is the group?
Isn't
Okay,
technology wonderful?
yeah.
Isn't that the case?
Yeah.
Nicolette, how do you spell your name? And I can change it for you.
NIK,
Yeah.
empty space, GAGACEV. NIK space GAGACEV. Why I can?
I hope I've spelled that correctly. And I think I got that changed.
No, it's still showing Darlene.
I think that's the actual Darlene, though.
Okay.
And then Nick, maybe I can spell.
Actually, mine says Brantford Planning.
Oh.
I didn't change it to my name because everybody else comes in at that name. So let me,
Darlene, I'll let you continue to work on that and we'll get the meeting started.
absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Darlene. I understand that there's 6 folks that are registered to speak this evening. So to them, as well as the staff and the proponents that are here this evening, I'd like to say welcome and thank you for taking the time out of your day to come this evening to express your point of view, whether in positive or negative. What we're here for is to entertain a zoning bylaw regarding 248 to 260 Grand River Ave, which is a large parcel of land in the Homedale area. The current approved build on that site is 1 6-story building and 24 townhouse units. The proponent is asking to change that to drop the 24 townhouse units and substitute that with 2 6-story high-rise buildings on the site for a total of 3. One is built now, and they're proposing to change the zoning to allow 2 more to be constructed on that site. So having said that, I'd just like to do a few introductions. I'm Councillor Sless. I'm joined this evening by my ward mate, Councillor John Utley. In the planning staff, we have Joe Modo, Manager of Development Planning, Casey Pongras, planner. She's the planner on file. And Sean House is a planner who will be taking notes this evening. The agents are Nick Wood from Corbett Land Strategies and Bob Phillips from Cahoon Engineering. And the applicant owner is Lanewood Development Corporation, Rob Multani. So I've explained the reason for the meeting this evening. And I guess the process for the meeting will be, there will be a planning overview, and planning staff will go through an overview, a high level of what's being proposed. The agent will then come introduce themselves and explain their development proposal. And at that point, the floor will be opened up for those that would like to ask questions. So I guess having said all of that, I will go to Casey and ask if you would please start your presentation, Casey. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Sless. Thanks very much. Good evening. My name is Casey Pongras, and I'm a planner with the City of Brantford. We're here tonight because we have received an application to amend the zoning bylaw for 4 properties on Grand River Avenue. They're numbered 248 to 260. I'd like to point out that this meeting is being streamed on YouTube and will be available for viewing afterwards. If you're viewing and have comments or questions that aren't being brought forward, please let me know after the meeting and I can do my best to have them answered for you. This is only the first meeting for this proposal, and it's to receive the feedback from the public. The applicant will then take these comments into consideration. The meeting following this will be the statutory public meeting required by the Planning Act, and that's presented to the Committee of the Whole. Members of the public will have an opportunity to speak for or against the application at that meeting as well. Applications are circulated to all property owners within 120 meters of the property. So as Councillor Sless mentioned, the subject lands are located on the south side of Grand River Avenue, and construction is currently underway on an apartment building containing 132 units. There's also approval for 24 townhouse units at this location. The applicants propose to amend the zoning on the property to permit a maximum of 348 apartment units and apply the zoning to all of the properties. They're proposing a total of 3 6-story apartment buildings, and as I mentioned, one's currently under construction. And to facilitate this proposal, a zoning bylaw amendment is required by the Planning Act. Currently, the lands are designated within the city's official plan. Sorry, I skipped right by it. They're designated in the city's official plan, which is a framework of goals and objectives for the city. It provides land use designations and policies which guide future development of the city. So these lands are designated residential in the official plan. And this designation permits low-rise, mid-rise, and high-rise residential buildings. There's also a small portion of it which is designated core natural area, and that's the portion adjacent to the river where the dike runs. With respect to the zoning, the existing zoning on the property, there are 2 zones actually. The large parcel where the apartment building is being built right now is zoned floodplain, residential high density, and there's a site-specific -3 zoning on this. Sorry, I'm struggling with my screen here. So the site-specific provisions on this land limit the uses on the property to an apartment building and 24 block townhouse units. It also contains site-specific provisions dealing with the amenity space, the parking, the building height, the loading, the yard setbacks, and the gross floor area. The provisions for the small area at the northwest corner of the property Those are zoned floodplain C3-2, which is a mixed residential commercial use. The site-specific exception, the -2 permits existing industrial uses in addition to all other permitted uses. The amendment before us is seeking to replace the existing floodplain residential high density exception 3 zone on those corner lots and apply the RHD or apply the RHD-3 to the entire property, but to also increase the maximum number of apartment units and apply some site specific zoning for lot area and parking and a number of other items that the applicant will speak to. That's just a high level of what we have before us, and I'll now pass it over to Nick Wood to present the application in more detail. So I'll stop my share, and I believe the applicant has a PowerPoint.
That's right. Thanks a lot, Casey. I'll share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Perfect. Before I get going, I was wondering if I could turn it over to Cahoon Engineering. Our clients have just a quick, brief kind of introductory remark on what they're trying to achieve here.
Okay, thank you very much, Nick. My name is AJ Kaushik, and I work with developer Lanewood Development Corporation as well as Multany Group. When we took over this project, it was a brownfield, and it was a major threat of, there was a major threat of pollution to the beautiful Grand River that runs beside it. And I know the neighborhood enjoys the Grand River and they love this area. So a lot of you may have had security concerns at that point in time due to the activities that were going on at the site that was, that was the site of old Penman's factory. So we took over this site and we converted this into a beautiful place. Since we have taken over this site, we cleaned up the contamination. We got the Ministry of Environment to certify the site clean to residential standards. We built the current building on site, and we are now in the process of doing landscaping to create access to Grand River walking trails and other amenities for general public and for the building's residents. We are also now proposing to build 2 more buildings, as you have noticed from the planning presentation. Multany Group and Lanewood, as some of you might know, have been in business since 1987, and we have positively contributed to the city of Brantford through smart developments, which have taken place in beautiful neighborhoods like Homedale, such as this one. Some of you may recall our project that is where the Harding carpet once was. In doing a project, our goal is always to, number 1, to do a smart development by utilizing existing infrastructure. Number 2, build a product, whether it's a single family, townhouse, or a multi-unit building. We want to build a product that's aesthetically pleasing, which enhances the neighborhood values and results in pride for its current and future residents. Number 3 objective is always to increase the supply of houses in such a way that it can be available for the city residents for purchasing or renting at the prices that are within their reach. For example, we sold our first townhouse on Harding Carpet site for $179,900 only a few years ago. And our first single family home on that site was sold for $229,900. Lastly, generally, we like to clean up derelict and polluted sites. You will be pleased to go through many developments that we have done in this city. One of the ones is on Jameson Court, which is right beside this property, on Mohawk Street, on Gray Street, on Brantwood Park Road, Harris Avenue, and Alfred Street. And there are many others out of town, which we have done to beautify the neighborhoods. In doing a development of this size, the developers, as some of you might know, have to go through a rigorous standard by the City of Brantford through its bylaws. On this site, we were not only monitored by the Ministry of Environment, but we were also monitored by the City of Brantford and GRCA. Developments of this type of sites are done to provide a number, and there is a number of studies that are required to be provided to the city. These studies are generally prepared by independent consultants, and once completed, these studies are then reviewed by the city staff to ensure that they meet the strict standards set up by the city and the authorities. The councillors in this meeting can assure you that no development takes place if deficiencies are found. As a representative of the developer, I can confirm to you that we go above and beyond what is minimum requirement, simply because we care for the communities we build. And also, our reputation is important to us. Through comments received by Planning Department, we have noted your concerns, which we plan to address through our consultations and with our consultants. However, one thing is clear, that we want to work with you as much as we can to address these concerns in an honest and responsible manner. I'm pretty sure that you understand that in the end, any project, including this one, is a result of cooperation of all parties through positive interaction with each other and with all the stakeholders. On our behalf, we can assure you that we are listening to your input very carefully today, and we will take that into account while making decisions. To you, I urge to keep an open mind and understand that we have a delicate balance to achieve in realizing the full development potential of the site, deliver a project to all of you that you like, and the one that meets strict quality standards and results in pride of ownership for the neighborhood. Our vision for this site is really as follows. Number one, we want to see a walkable community closer to everything, accessible by public transportation, biking trails, and which promotes an active lifestyle. We see the area of Homedale and this site to be particularly very conducive to having a walkable community where not everyone has cars and people are using public transportation to get around. The site is closer to many amenities, as you know, and as more of this type of developments proceed, we hope that the area will attract people from all walks of life who enjoy an active lifestyle. We also want to do a project that results in increasing supply of condominiums at the prices that the city residents can afford to buy or rent. We are proposing to add 218 more units to this site, which will increase the supply for buyers and renters. We want to beautify the landscaped area with public access to the Grand River Dike and walking trails. We want to do a project that increases the pride of ownership for the neighbors and beautifies the neighborhood. With this, I will turn over our presentation to Nick Wood so he can show you our planning notes on the site.
Excellent.
Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
AJ. I really appreciate that. And I apologize to everyone watching if my background continues to get darker and darker. I'm in an office building and we've got a alarm or schedule on our lights apparently that I had no idea about. But thanks a lot, AJ, and thanks, Casey, for that the background. I'll try not to touch on or repeat any of the information that you've shared. But kind of quickly, we've got a quick agenda, so we'll talk a little bit about the background, some of the background policy. Casey's touched on everything, so we'll skim over that quickly. We'd like to give you a little bit more information on the proposed development, and then some of the specific features of the development. Casey and the city has provided us with a lot of comments from the residents so far, so we've already started to kind of digest those. We'd like to show you what we are currently proposing. And then we'll get into maybe providing any further clarification at the question portion. But then we'll talk about some transportation and then get into next steps. So quickly, the subject lands are located just north of the Grand River and southwest of the overall downtown of Brantford. The lands are approximately 2.05 hectares. And at the location of the former Penman site. Currently, there's, as the residents know, there's a 6-story, 132-unit apartment building. And surrounding the subject lands are a mixed-use business area to the east, low-rise residential to the west, low-rise residential to the north, and then the Grand River to the south. Here are some views of the existing conditions. With the central apartment building currently existing, as well as views from looking southeast and southwest. As Casey mentioned, the official plan designates the lands as residential, which permits a range of housing types, including apartments. within the official plan, the city requires at least 45% of all new residential development to occur within the delineated built-up area, and directs that mid-rise buildings are to be 3 to 6 stories in height. According to the zoning bylaw, majority of the subject lands are designated residential high density 3 with floodplain provisions. Obviously, the immediate northwest corner of the lands have a commercial designation that are zoning, sorry, that are being proposed to be rezoned. Permitted uses on this include block townhouses and apartment dwellings. What you have in front of you is the landscape plan illustrating the proposed development. As mentioned by Casey, 2 additional buildings are being proposed at 6 stories with surface parking, bicycle parking located at the front of each, extensive landscaping, and add 2 accesses to the trail, which we'll kind of discuss in greater detail further on the presentation. Also in front of you are some of the elevation materials that were submitted with the first submission. This would be the east elevation, and this would be the south elevation. The next slide gives a little bit more detail and overall an aerial rendering of the proposed development. As mentioned, we're proposing 216 additional units within 2 additional buildings. The height is 6 stories with a minimum gross area per unit of 40 square meters, which is in keeping with the zoning bylaw. The minimum amenity space that is being proposed within these developments is around 12.5 square meters per unit. And that includes space provided on the balconies as well as some of the rooftop terraces. 261 parking spaces are proposed, and we'll discuss that a little bit further. We're joined by Erica Bailey from Paradigm, our transportation consultant, because I know that was there was a lot of comments and questions on that. So if it's okay, Casey and Darlene and councillors, I'd like to turn it over to Nick, our architect on that file, to kind of speak through some of these other features of the development.
Sure. Go ahead, Nick.
So hi to everybody, and thank you for inviting us to speak on behalf of this wonderful development. I think it's very important to mention that one of the developers of this properties is actually residents of Jamieson Court, and we were given strict instructions are designed to be very sensitive towards the adjacent neighborhood. We did all our best efforts to do that with multiple site visits, multiple viewing of the location, and trying to figure out what's the best way to approach and to deliver one development which is friendly to the neighbors, friendly to the pedestrian traffic, friendly to the bicycle traffic, and all in general to improve the spirit of the area that is already wonderful. So as you can see on the photos, you know, like with the design, we tried to break these buildings into more sections and to break the uniformity of boring buildings. We are aware there are some comments from the residents of Jamieson Court that are concerned about the privacy of specifically one building that is overlooking the Jamieson side of the property, which is the west side. There is an easy solution for that. We are proposing large overgrown trees to be planted on the street that is overlooking the Jamieson Court. And to add to that, we think that Jamieson Street itself, the entry of the street, is wide enough. We are respecting the setbacks imposed by the city and the zoning bylaws. And with that, as you can see with the first building, I think still is in touch with the residential character of the building. Nothing is oversized. It just, if you walk by the building today that is already existing and built, it's like it belongs there with materials, with appearance, with everything. Nick, we can go to the next one. So the trees that we will screen that can be oversized trees are shown on this bottom photo or bottom rendering, where we are showing that that strip of grown trees that will just provide like a live curtain with the green curtain between the Jameson Court and the proposed development. The landscape architects are also considering this, and they will also take care that local plants that are able to survive and able to thrive in these areas are implemented. If you can go to the next one, Nick. So what we like about personally in this area is that we have opportunity to promote pedestrian and non-vehicular transportation. We're close to the center of the city. We encourage like bikes and other means of transportation that are ecologically healthy. Introducing, for instance, the bike, the lower image on the left is showing the treatment of the street towards Grand River Avenue and also showing the landscape plan. Also, what contributes to the beauty of this development is the easy access of public transportation. We have 4 bus stations in the neighborhood, and we have an easy access to the dike. So in the design of this development, special attention was paid to the allowing the site and the properties within the site and around the site enough sun, enough ventilation, and all these healthy factors that makes one community great and livable. We took very much special attention, especially because one of the developers is resident there and he knows the space in detail. He lives there, and we were instructed to, to be very, very sensitive to adjacent areas. And with this, I believe I'm finishing my part of the presentation.
I'm telling you. Oh my God, Reza.
Testing you.
Nick, I'm done. I know I'm finished. Hello? Hello? Hi there.
I think that may have been somebody that wasn't on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I was just on mute while you were speaking, Nick, and thanks, Councillor. Thanks, Nick. So the next we wanted to kind of touch on some of the compatibility and impacts of the proposed development, just to kind of bring the residents into how Nick and Lanewood thought about this, and they put some time into thinking about the proposal, and they've had some discussions with staff on a couple of occasions. So one of the items that went into preparing this was the application of the 45-degree angular plane, which is very common amongst urban design principles when proposing a development like what we're proposing. It ensures that that privacy is taken into context, as well as the building's setback and is not infringing on some of the adjacent uses. So that's what's been done. It's measured from the property line, then you have Jameson, then the landscape that's being buffer that's proposed, and then our proposed building. So again, in addition to some of the landscaping that's going to be proposed, it's hoped to reduce the impact on particularly the units on the west side of Jameson. Part of the submission requirements for our application involved the completion of a shadow study. And Nick and his team prepared one based on the shadowing that would result from three time zones, time frames at March 21st, June 21st, and December 21st. And this shows kind of a snapshot of what the impacts are. And what it shows is that for the most part, the development maintains a minimal shadowing impact on some of the units, particularly between the times of March and June. The building's shadow impacts is very limited. So when people are outside and taking advantage of the additional sunlight, this period of time is minimized. So we can talk about that.
Nick, could I just stop you there, please? Is there some way of enlarging that that screen? It's very difficult for the residents that are tuned. That's better. So just so they get a better idea, and if you could, so that shows up the times of the year as well, which was hard to see before.
Okay.
So if you could start at the top and work your way down, that would be very helpful to the guests that are with us tonight.
For sure, yeah. No, thank you, Councillor. So what we have in front of you are three snapshots, and again, this is a snapshot of the overall plan, and that speaks to the time periods beyond 12 p.m. too. We're just showing you where the greatest impact would be, and what Casey or we could provide, as well as the materials that were submitted, so the residents can see the full time period, because one of the things that this was a requirement from the city, and the city has specific standards that we have to satisfy when we submit a shadow study like this. So what we have in front are three time frames at March 21st at 9 a.m., 10:30 a.m., and then 12 p.m. And what this is this is based on a modeling of the sun as it's coming across the sky, and then casting the shadows at those various times. So you can see at 9 a.m. It starts to come on to Jameson Court, and then starting to shift eastward as we head further on in the day. And then by 12 p.m., roughly at the height of the sunrise, it starts reducing and starts heading over to the commercial property to the east of the site. Then on June 21st, we start at 7 a.m. after the sunrise, because it obviously rises earlier in the day. It hits the properties on the west side, just in the front yards. And then after at 8:30 a.m., it starts shifting, heading eastward, I guess. And then by 10 a.m., the shadow impact is limited to on-site only. And then December, at 9:30, the sun casts the shadow on some of the units towards on the north side of Grand River. By 11, they're starting to shift west or eastward, and then, in an eastward direction. And then by 12:30, they're continuing to do so. So, like I said, these materials have been submitted to the city, and so either myself, I could provide them if a resident would like to see that, or Casey would obviously have that available for residents to look into more detail.
Sorry, Nick, just to cut in there. I think everyone has been provided with a link to the Dropbox, and all of your submission materials are contained in the Dropbox.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Casey. And then quickly, and this just continues on what Nick was speaking about. Our clients, as well as Nick, and have studied the buildings to maximize sunlight and views to the Grand River as much as possible, as well as to maximize airflow from the Grand River. And these are requirements built into the waterfront master plan. So we've tried to accomplish that as best as possible. We think we've been able to do that as well. Next on the docket, we're going to move into traffic. So I know we're demanding a lot of Casey and the city speaking, but if it's okay, I'd like to turn it over to Erica Bailey from Paradigm, where the transportation consultant can kind of speak to that study and a little bit of more detail on the project.
Hello.
Hi, go ahead, Erica.
Oh, sorry. Of course, right as I'm about to speak, my monitors just started flickering. Okay, so if everybody can hear me, I just wanted to talk about the TIS that we prepared, which should be in that Dropbox link, as it was part of the submission. So we prepared the transportation impact study based on a scope that was approved with city staff and using industry standards. So the first part of our process was to evaluate the existing conditions within the study area. And based on that, we found there's no existing operational issues. I know the intersection of St. Paul and Brant is particularly of concern. And we did see that that intersection is certainly busy, but it's not operating over capacity. And then to forecast the development is forecast to generate 119 AM trips, AM peak hour trips, and 154 PM peak hour trips, and those are kind of the standard peak hours that we use. They're the critical hours of the day. And then we look at background traffic, which is traffic in the area forecast without the development. So this would include accounting for generalized background growth and other area developments that have been approved but are not built yet. And once we added that in, we did see some capacity issues at St. Paul and Brant, particularly in the southbound left turn. It was operating over capacity. We added in the site traffic on top of that, and there is a very, very small impact to those operations. And the remedial measure that we found to be successful was optimizing the signal timing at the intersection at the existing signal. You can optimize the splits, get a little bit more green time to that movement, and you gain some capacity there. So that was a good solution for that. We also did a parking justification study to determine whether or not the proposed supply of 0.75 spaces per unit was appropriate. And based on the area auto ownership for apartment dwellers, proxy site data, and the surrounding active transportation and transit network, we found that there was good support for this reduced rate. In particular, if we could go to the next slide, we can see some proxy site data. So these are 3 other developments, and you'll see that that third development is actually the existing building on the property, the 132 units that have already been built, and they're showing a parking utilization rate of 0.74 spaces, which is right on target, and 2 other similar developments showing similar rates. So both in support of the reduced rate.
Excellent. Thanks, Erica. Appreciate that. And I'm sure some of the residents will may direct some more questions to you. So we'll definitely speak to anything further that the counselors, staff, or the residents have to the team. But so that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Obviously, the materials that accompanied the first submission are a little bit more extensive, and the clients have gone to a great deal of effort to kind of compile a consultant team that can respond to all the technical requirements that the city has. So some of the next steps in the overall process, we've received majority of comments from departments and agencies. There are a few others that we're still waiting on to complete the picture, and then continue to receive all public comments. The consultant team and with Lanewood will take those comments received and evaluate them against the proposed development, make any technical and design changes to the submission, and then resubmit to the city. The city would obviously then review, issue further comments if necessary. And then, like Casey has mentioned, one of the next steps would be the statutory public meeting and presentation to council for ultimate decision. So that's it from our side of things, Casey. So I can, if you want, we can turn it back over to you, and I'll stop sharing.
Yes, thank you, Nick, and thanks, folks, for your overviews. I think at this point we will go to the public. I don't have a list here of who's registered, so I'll lean on Darlene to if you could connect the first speaker.
I've got
Yes,
a list.
no problem, Councillor Sless. We have first up Mr. George Garvey.
Good.
I'll just ask him to unmute. He was having a bit of technical difficulty previously. Okay. Looks like he still is. We will go to, sorry?
It's Miguel here.
We will go next to Mr. Miguel Barraza. If you'd like to ask your questions, go ahead, please.
Okay, hi. I figured as you get older, you have memory problems. So I'll start with the last information from regarding the traffic flow. One of the issues, although it's not related to the development itself, it's very close to, is obviously St. Paul and Grand River. almost every time I drive by there in the morning, I have to stop about 30 feet before the stop sign because there's these big transport are turning and the road is way too narrow to accommodate those big transports. And I could go right up to the stop and the suckers would be stuck. They wouldn't know where to go. So is there a plan to have lights and maybe expand the roadway at that area so that these poor transport guys can actually turn?
I think, Miguel, what we'll be doing is we'll be taking down your questions. We'll certainly be getting answers for you. I'm not sure if we have the support staff here that could respond directly to them. Perhaps Casey, if you've got a response, that would be great.
Thanks, Councillor. We do not have transportation staff with us this evening, but we can certainly take down the comments and take them back to transportation staff. I know they have provided comments to the applicants with some questions about Brant Ave and St. Paul Ave and some other questions. So we can certainly take that question back to them. I don't believe there are any plans for a light at that location, but we'll certainly take that back to transportation staff.
I do have more questions, as some of you may know, because I'm at the 9 Jameson Court, and that is right at the corner of where the development is, just before you turn west to go towards Mr. Multani's house. So I'm right beside that property. So I do have many questions. Should I ask them now or should I wait?
Absolutely. No, carry on. Miguel, you have the floor.
Okay. There was a note about one of the residents on 9 Jameson, just when you turn from Grand River onto Jameson, not my residence, sorry, but the first individual house after the townhouse. There's a townhouse right at Grand River. Then if you keep going south, there's a house there. That house will be aiming right for that apartment building. And I just want to have some assurance that that poor lady who has many children will not be seeing this 6-story in all this grandeur. Will there be a nice fence and also mature trees there, so all she sees are the trees and not this huge 6-story building? Probably Mr. Multani might know about that.
Yeah, Casey, I'm sorry, Miguel. Would I be able to share the presentation so we can kind of point out maybe the property that he's referring to?
Absolutely. Do you still have the ability to share?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yes. Yep.
So Miguel, which property are you referring to? Would it be this property here?
There is, if you notice on Grand River, there's a townhouse on Grand River. It's the next one south of it. It's a single dwelling. Yeah, that's about the one that's facing dead on to that future planned 6-story building. Right.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the things that that the Multanis have tried to achieve and is some adding additional landscaping and not just small stature trees, but also mainly mature and larger deciduous and coniferous trees. So this elevation would show, this would be Jameson right here, and maybe I'll zoom in a little bit better. I don't know if that's a little bit, if you can see that. But so the goal would be to plant deciduous and coniferous trees that reach higher heights to block and screen some of the massing of the buildings from the units. So that would help mitigate the impact, I think, the visual impact, anyways, to that townhouse to a certain extent.
Okay. Hi, Nick. Bob Phillips here. I think you've got another slide that shows sort of the face of that building looking from Jameson.
Do you know what number, Bob?
Sorry, I don't.
I've got a bunch of renderings. Oh, would this be it? No.
Keep scrolling, I think. Keep scrolling, I think.
So this would be, Jameson would be just to the east or to the west here. Would this be it?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Yeah, and this was a rendering that was submitted with our first submission, but again, yeah, it speaks to Jameson to the side here. Some of these larger trees that are proposed, and then yeah, Bob, you're right. You can make out some of the buildings. Obviously, they haven't been designed to scale or to the same size, but it gives you an idea.
If I look at that, at this drawing that you put on the screen, and if I take 10 foot per story, those are 50-foot trees. Is that what you're planning there, 50-foot trees?
I'd want to defer that to the arborist and the landscaper that prepared the landscape drawings that accompanied the first submission. But we can maybe provide that clarification after the meeting.
Okay, well, can you tell me, you say you're going to put in large trees. Can you define a large tree?
I can't give you the exact height.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if anyone from the Multanis or if Cahoon could speak to that.
I think Nick, maybe I'll just, the idea is to try to get some mature trees in there right from the get-go. Obviously, they will grow over time. I'm not an arborist, so the type of tree, I think we've got to leave to the landscape architect. And maybe that's something we can come back with as a result of the question, is let you know.
If you can specify the caliper when you come back, that would be greatly helpful. Thank you.
So I come back, I suspect the idea is the second floor of that building would be about what, 24 feet up? And if the mature tree was at least 20 to 24 feet up, then you would see mainly, at least during the summertime, the tree branches.
That would be the
Nick, may I chime in here, please?
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. So Miguel, I understand your concerns. The second floor will be 10 feet up, not like 20 feet up. And Miguel, just to make you aware, in the Dropbox, like advice from the city, we address the property that you're talking about. We were required to request in detail how we treat that property by the city. But by the city, we were requested to address this. I want you to be aware, Miguel, that between the house that you're talking about and our building has like you can place 2 more houses in length. So there is a certain space between the lady's house and the apartment building. From the scale that I'm looking at, you can put like 4 houses in the same size between her house and the starting edge of the apartment building. And each floor has 10 feet. So there's 30-feet trees are not something unusual. So you'll be up to the 3rd floor from the get-go covered. So we're not talking about development of these trees. We're talking about 6-story building here. We're not talking about monsters 9, 10, 15-story high-rise. So just to bring a perspective of it, I appreciate the question, but this was addressed, and you can download the materials and you can see how in detail we addressed each and every house in that property. That's the corner houses on that street, and especially the house that you're talking about. It's particularly addressed in the responses to the
Nick. Now, the other question relates to the height of the main floors where more people would be looking over. Is there going to be like a fence from Grand River right up to where the trail is? And how high would that fence be?
I don't know if we've gone to that level of detail. So you're looking, would that go along Jameson to Grand River or to the river?
Yes.
I'm not sure if we've gotten to that level of detail, but Nick or Multany?
No, Nick, I don't believe we've gone into that detail yet with those plans. Obviously, on completion of the rezoning here, we'd end up going through site plan and all those details would definitely be fleshed out. We've certainly heard the question, and you know, I think probably we should address that at least in written form at this point, once we know.
Yeah, the concern that I have obviously is there's going to be a high volume of people on the other site, and if there was no fence, then you would have people visiting Jameson because everybody's curious, and if there's any children on the other side, then the fence, if it was built, and I suspect it should, because right now there's like a rickety fence up there, should be non-climbable and hopefully maintenance free so that it doesn't kind of fall over after 5 years. So I thought because there's somebody writing the minutes of the meeting here that those concerns should be addressed.
No, thanks for that. Yeah, that's appreciated. We'll definitely make note of that. And I'm sure, and I'm sure that's part of, like Bob mentioned, one of the next steps will be the submission of site plan application. So there's going to be opportunity for that as well at that point.
Nick, would you be able to flip to the site plan just so I can get an idea of where Mr. Barras is talking about? So
I'm thinking that we're looking at along Jameson to the.
Yes, absolutely.
So do you mean the whole length of Jameson? There should be a fence?
Yes. Otherwise, people will be traveling right through. So we're going to have like 1,000+ residents. There'll be, I mean, who knows? There might be very social people on Jameson, but they might have problems with the dogs coming over and depositing products on our grass.
Okay, we'll take note of your comment. Thank you.
Okay, was that all the questions you had, Mr. Barassa?
I suspect with the 9 questions that I had sent over that there's a few that have been addressed already with Mr. Multani. He will address the issue of the extra sewage effluents. I don't have to go into that. I think that will be addressed probably between the engineers because there's going to be all of a sudden, you know, maybe 1,000 to 2,000 more people there, which make deposits. Also, the issue, one of the things I want to say in a positive note, and I hope everything so far is positive, that's my intent, is that the current building, 130 some odd units, was made in what's called precast. I call that the Lego method, where you just, all the concrete was brought in, already done, and it was actually, the building went up very fast. And I compare it to the number one west downtown, which was, I think it took like, I don't know, 2.5 years to build. This building, I think it took, I don't know, 6-7 months before the 6 floors were up. So I was reassured that both buildings will be built in that fashion, which even people buying these future condos will be happy because you're not going to have structural issues. So I wanted that to be said on the record that I think that's the future way of things being built. And also wanted to let Mr. Multani know that I was talking to many local residents, one of whom was an electrician who did some work at the current site. And he was a bit confused because he was wondering how come the standards were so high for a subsidized apartment. And many people were wondering, are those condos, as they were walking on, they wanted to buy those apartments along the Grand River because, I mean, you know, who's got a view of the Grand River in condos? Nobody. And that's about the only building. So that should be put on record that they do build to a very high standard. I was that was my entertainment as I was watching the building being built from my patio. There's some structural issues that I'm dealing with Mr. Multani, and those will be dealt with. You don't need to go to the committee. And now somebody mentioned something about signals. Is there going to be a light at St. Paul and Grand River? And will the signals be set up so that when people leave to go to work, that there's a longer green light on Grand River, and when they come back on St. Paul, there'll be a longer green light turning onto Grand River?
I can speak to that if you don't mind, Casey. Yeah, so I think one of the recommendations from and I can pass this over to Erica too. She authored the report. One of the recommendations that came out of that was some of the increased capacity on the intersection could be addressed through lengthening the time of the green light. Erica, do you have anything else to add to that?
He's talking about a different intersection, I think.
Oh, okay.
You're talking about Grand River and St. Paul, right?
Yes.
Which is currently unsignalized. And as far as I know, there's no plans for signalization. However, to your comment about different signal timing plans, that is typically how signals operate. A signal anywhere in the city will have a timing plan that is reflective of traffic flow throughout the day. So you may have an AM timing plan, a PM timing plan, and an off-peak timing plan, a weekend timing plan, depending on the magnitude of the intersection. So were this to be signalized, which I don't think is the case, then that would come into effect.
I can tell you, Mr. Barassa, that the transportation group is looking at the signal timing and have requested the synchro files from the applicants so that they can look at this in more detail.
That's for St. Paul and Brant.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
My last question is, I know that beside my house, there's a plan for a parking lot on that property, and that below the parking lot, there's going to be either receptacle for like the drainage for storm sewers. I'm just wondering, how deep do you have to dig down to make those sewage, not sewage, but water containment services?
Yeah, I think that would be
those. Yep. Sorry, Nick. Sorry, those units are not very deep. Probably like 4 to 5 feet deep. And just use as storage to control the runoff from the site.
Okay, those are the semicircular domes that I saw there that they put in the main parking lot there. That's
correct. Yeah, but it's a smaller system than what was proposed for the central area.
Now, like I know the current drainage along the Dyke Trail finishes right behind my house where there's like drainage grills, and I don't think there's any on the proposed properties. Is there any plan to have a drainage system along that, or will the water issues be dealt with your proposed plan?
I guess twofold. The proposed plan will contain the runoff on the site, but there is additional storm sewers and inlet structures to collect the water, to get it into the Caltech system and then slowly discharge from the site. So I guess my answer is yes and yes.
Okay, thank you so much, and I hope I didn't monopolize too much time from the other individuals waiting to ask questions.
No, that's fine. We appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts and concerns, Miguel. Okay, if you're all finished, could you bring in the next member of the public, please?
Yes, next up we have Carol Stillers. Carol, would you like to go ahead and ask your questions?
Yeah, so I have some concerns about traffic, not necessarily at Brant Ave and St. Paul. What they're proposing is fine. The problem is getting out of Homedale, especially during busy times. We have very few options to get out of Homedale. So they redid St. Paul Ave recently, And it's a very narrow street. If you're trying to get by there, when there's a car parked and a truck coming and you're going opposite, it's very narrow. And I know they did that on purpose to keep everybody slowed down, I'm pretty sure. But what other choice do you have to get out of Homedale? Well, you have Church Street. And then you're up at Brant Ave again. Then you have to, well, usually I turn right onto Brant Ave, and then I have to turn left to get onto West Street. And that backs up a lot of traffic. I think there's a problem with traffic there, always has been. This isn't going to help with more individuals living in Homedale. As far as Mr. Bourassa, his question about a light at St. Paul and Grand River, I personally would not like to see a light there. We all know that trucks turn there. We have to wait while they turn because they need such a wide turn. We realize that if you put a light there and there's a bunch of cars on Grand River Ave, the truck won't be able to turn. I don't think a light would solve that problem at all. The other thing about the shadows, we only saw 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock. We didn't see any other shadows affecting the, I'm not on the north side, but I'm just thinking of the neighbors on the north side. I know they were as that building was going up, they were in a lot of shadows throughout the day, mostly in winter, fall, spring. I'm wondering, well, just by looking at the design here, it looks like they decided on one thing and then changed their mind. I'm not sure why they changed their mind about what they want to do. In regards to home Harding carpets, those are places that you buy, and there's pride of ownership when you buy something. Not so much when you have an apartment, as we notice further down the street, as we have 3 more apartments down the street towards the bus barns. Not that they're unsightly, but it's certainly not the pride of ownership. You see is people that own their own homes, even if it were like a condominium apartment. So my question is, my other question is it possible that this might not be approved, these 2 other apartment buildings? If they're not approved, what would we get instead? Would they go back to the original design of townhouses, where again, people can buy the townhouses and a little more pride of ownership and owning your own property? And I think those were my concerns and my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Well, the next speaker, please, Darlene.
Yes, our next speaker is, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, Ashley Bosniak. Ashley, you can go ahead with your questions, please.
Yes, I also have similar concerns to other people in the neighborhood. I'm curious as to why these plans have been changing.
Okay, would anybody like to respond?
Yeah, I can take a stab at it, and then maybe I can turn it over to the client. The plans have changed since the previous, I think, proposal, mainly because the clients have the ownership has changed. The previous, I think, applicant for that apartment building and townhouses sold the property to the Multanys who specialize and build a lot of these mid-rise apartment buildings of higher quality. AJ and Rob, did you want to continue on with that?
Yes, so the plans have changed, first of all, because the property itself has changed. We are acquiring the corner property here and merging it with this property to make the property, the landmass larger. As we make the landmass larger, we're also realizing the market is actually shifting from the townhouse / single family type of development to multi-residential type of development. We all know that the price increase in those 2 segments of the market, which is townhouse and single family, is not allowing younger people, people on limited income, people on lower income groups to be able to afford the ownership. So we were hoping that by bringing these two new buildings, and this is also partially answering Ms. Siller's question as well, we want to do these buildings as condominiums. Even the existing building, which is the apartment building, which is the rental, affordable rental, we have done that as a condominium just so that minimum standards of maintenance can be maintained. When you do a building as a condominium, the city requires you to do certain type of things in a certain way, which is different than the rental apartment building. So our goal is to allow more people to come over there. Like I said earlier, we want to make this a walkable community, and we want to maintain these buildings to the condominium standards.
Did that help?
It does. I have an understanding as to why Brantford would be interested in expanding its low-income sector for housing. However, I think putting it next to Jameson Court isn't a wise idea. That's my own personal opinion. We have some trouble in our area already, and I think that might be increasing as well if we were to develop more of these units close to these homes.
Can I clarify something? Can I clarify something here? I just want to mention that this is not, we're not talking about low income housing here. I think there's a confusion. No, it's not geared to income either. It's just, you want to build, when we think about a project, what we want to do is we want to deliver to a segment of population that can afford the lowest part of the market. So you don't want to sell something like a 1,000 square foot apartment for $900,000 or $700,000. You want to sell it as a developer. We think about selling it based on Brantford's median income, which is 75. So anybody who can afford that, anybody who is within that median income can afford to buy something over there. What is happening right now is, even if you have the median income in Brantford, you're not really able to afford a house in Brantford. So that's what we really want to do. So please do not confuse it with low income, because it's really not defined anywhere what low income is. We want to cater to majority of Brantfordians who have actually throughout their life worked in Brantford and are not able to currently buy a single family or townhouse.
Can I make a quick point? My plan, and I have a single house here, is when I'm too old to maintain my property, I would like to be able to buy a condo in this area because, you know, I love the area. So if there's condos behind me, hey, guess what? I'll be first in line.
Thank you, Mr. Bourassa, for mentioning it. Let me also tell this to everybody here. The building that is rented right now, the 132 unit building, has got a lot of tenants in there who've actually moved in from the houses to that building. They sold their houses because of their life situation change. And so that's the type of buyer who will really be appealing to.
Okay, are there further questions?
Okay, it looks like Ashley is finished.
Okay, thanks,
Ashley. Questions, and our next person is Joanne Bosnack. Joanne, go ahead with your question, please.
Oh, I have many. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Fine. Yeah, you're doing fine.
Okay, good. So, John, I know you. I think I know Mr. Utley. I don't know the three gentlemen sitting there together. The man with the beard, who is he? Yes, the man in the purple shirt that just looked at him. I don't know, like that. Cahoon.
I'm Rob Multaney.
You're Rob. Sorry, Rob. I went to your wedding. I should have known. You look different. All right. Anyway, I'm glad to see you there.
You must have had a good time at this wedding.
Oh, man, I want to tell you about it. Okay. So, yeah, I'm really glad that we're all sitting down here because I think we're trying to achieve a goal here, and that is for the current residents and I myself, along with my daughter. The house that Miguel was talking about is 6 Jameson Court, where my daughter lives. I live at 270 Grand River in the townhouse. So I have a double interest here, if you can understand that. I do need clarification, especially with regards to the fence, the trees, because I'll tell you something, all of you sitting there, if it was your grandchildren that were at your home saying they're watching people having sex in those buildings, let me tell you, you would want more than trees there. This is despicable. That we need privacy. This doesn't need to happen for my grandchildren to watch. I would like clarification as to whether this is geared to income or whether it's low-income housing.
It's not.
Could
it's
someone-
not- oh,
May I answer that?
Please.
So this building is not geared to income. First of all, geared to income is a term that a lot of people confuse. Geared to income is tied down to the renter. Some renters get subsidies towards the rent from whichever authority, whether it's provincial government or the city, and they can move from building to building, and the landlord would not even notice because they pay full rent. What happens on the back end of
The
that
geared
is
to income do not pay full rent because it's based on their income. And yes, they would, if in that case, in Mr. Multani's case, I can assure you, because he's a great businessman, he would have a property manager. And that property manager.
Sorry, I did not mean to interrupt, but what I was trying to say to you is from the landlord gets the full rent, but the tenant is getting part of that rent paid directly to them by some government authority, whether it's City of Brantford or provincial government. So from the landlord's point of view, there is nothing geared to rent in this building. That I can clarify to you.
But Joanne, these two buildings that we're proposing, they're not affordable housing or they're not geared to income. They're not under any program. They will be a market buildings.
So you're saying that the other two that are going up are going to be market rent?
Rent buildings, yes.
Is there,
Either
excuse me a
market
second,
rent or
is there a member of staff that can define affordable housing?
Yeah, well, I'm just a bit confused because my understanding was that the reason that site was cleaned up, it was so that area would be developed and it was cleaned up, paid by the government. That brown fill or whatever was cleaned up by the government and paid by the government. But in order for that to be done, whoever purchased the property and had that done would have to provide affordable housing for, say, at least 3 years, and then they could flip it over and sell the units and turn it into private, like say if people wanted to buy the units. Is that the plan? Is that the intent after 3 years?
No, that is not the intent. This
So
building
this is
is under, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, these two buildings are under no program whatsoever. So there won't be no geared to income or affordable housing terms on these buildings.
So as far as these 3 apartment buildings, there will be no private ownership being planned. You're not going to convert them into private condos down the road?
No, the existing building, no, but these two buildings, we have, it's undecided. But they will not be under any programs where it's a geared to income or affordable housing. But it's undecided if they're a renter or for sale.
Do you know when that decision is going to be made?
We do not, but internally we can have that discussion and we can get back to you on that.
And why was it switched from the townhouses to apartment buildings, if you don't mind me asking?
I can kind of jump in here too. I think one of the previous questions, there was a multitude of factors that came into play here. There's a definitive market need, probably maybe more so now than previously. I mean, there's always been a housing need, but there's been a change of ownership. So with that comes a change of the project's pro forma. And then as AJ mentioned, there was the acquisition of additional property to kind of expand the limits of the site. So there was a multitude.
Talking about George's house, our neighbor's house, the one on the corner that was purchased?
Yes, the one on the southwest corner of Grand River and Jameson.
Okay, yeah, I know the property. All right. How many of you live down here? Rob, I'm excluding you. Do any of you live actually in Homedale?
Unfortunately, I do not.
That is very unfortunate, because if you live down here, you'd understand why we have concerns, okay? I don't see how 3 apartment buildings going up right beside us when we have 3 other apartment buildings to the left of us. How can Brantford do that to Homedale? Like, you know what? There's lots of property for sale. Why don't you take those 2 buildings and build them elsewhere? Why Homedale? We already have 4 within walking distance. There's no confirmation of if there's going to be a fence down Jameson. There's no confirmation of how high those trees are going to be. There's a lot of questions that are unanswered. And personally, I feel very uncomfortable. Homedale is homey for a reason. And like, why are we being hit with all these apartment buildings in such a short, like, look at us. Name another area in Brantford where there's this congestion of apartment buildings. Please help me. I'm not from Brantford. I'm a newbie. Only been here since 2012. But I'll tell you, I love Homedale. I love my neighbors. Does anyone know? Did we lose someone?
If I could jump in here, John. Joanne, there's a large development going up opposite the Civic Center. I believe
that's not Homedale, John.
Let me finish.
That's not
please.
Homedale.
Let me finish, please. There's a large development going up opposite the Civic Center for obtainable homes, I believe. And there are more plans coming down the pipeline for along Market Street. There's 2 or 3 developments in the pipeline there. So there's and they're just the ones that come to mind. There's a lot of activity going on in the city right now with multi-story buildings. It's been decades since the city had any new multi-story homes going up. So I just wanted to balance that out a little bit for you.
Yes, and also I forgot, just down from the Multaney development, I can't remember the name of the street, but it's on the same side. There's more units going up down there.
Yes, that's
so just our one street alone is being inundated with these type of buildings. I mean, do you want it to look like Toronto, or do you want to maintain some beauty here? And if you're going to do that, like you're talking about building all this, we've got dogs. I've never seen so many dogs in my life. And these aren't those little, petite foo-foo dogs. These are huge dogs that are coming down. I was just walking over to my daughter's tonight. And what is there all over the sidewalk? Dog doo-doo. And this is only the beginning. My neighbor next to me, same thing all over her lawn. It's consistent. So if Mr. Multaney could please consider, or the city, whoever, consider putting in a nice dog park in their facility to accommodate all the dogs, rather than having all the mess on their neighbors' lawns. Because people are not picking up. Safety-wise, trying to get across, I already talked to Mr. Celeste about this before, having a crosswalk put in at Jameson so that my grandkids can safely cross to walk to school or get on the school bus, because we've got 7 kids here. Well, John, nothing's been done. The other day when I was out there waiting for the bus, a transport truck just missed a school bus from being sideswiped. So you say there's not a problem, but the people that live down here see it all the time. We got city people, city cars and trucks and everything speeding down Grand River. You know, you name it, you see them speeding. We have problems down here and you're compounding it for us. Someone
And
has
what
got to listen.
Joanne, what I can tell you is a number of your neighbors share your concerns. At least they're sharing with me on the phone. So you're not alone in your concern. If that's any relief to you at all, a number of your neighbors have called.
Thank you, John. Yes, I know that because we do speak and we are very, very concerned. You know, when you're saying you can't tell us all these, Miguel came on here and he had excellent questions, but how many answers did he actually get? You know, I'm not getting answers here. I don't think Miguel got all the answers to his questions either. So I hope that if this is going to proceed forward, that we are very clear and you come back to us with very clear answers. Like you said, what kind of trees are you putting in? But nobody could say because you have to go back to your environmental or your landscaping people. What
Joanne,
kind of thing
can I
on?
make a suggestion, Joanne? Do you think it
Sure.
would be helpful to you and your neighborhood if once this meeting is over and everybody has an opportunity to share their concerns, that the developer take those concerns back and they bring back a plan again reflecting what they've changed in response to the concerns raised? In other words, a
Yes.
second meeting to demonstrate what's been said and how it's been reacted to. Would that be beneficial to you?
Anything will be more beneficial than what we're getting here because we need answers. All
Yeah,
right.
Well, this is the
And
first
I
go, Joanne.
appreciate the meeting. I mean, this is a starting point, but it's definitely not a solution. We're
No,
only, these are the baby steps, like we've just started. But I'm really praying to God, and I mean this seriously, that everyone is listening and hearing what we have to say down here.
And I think the whole idea of a second meeting after this, like a meeting subsequent to this meeting, would be an opportunity to, there you could, the answers to your questions could be shared and the plan could be presented reflecting any changes that were made in response to the concerns that were raised. If
Are we going to have an access? Are we getting our access back to the trail? You talked about putting in 2 accesses for these apartment buildings. Well, when I bought down here, I could ride my bike up straight up from Jameson up to the trail. It's been taken away. Where's my access point?
I can share a plan, and one of the things that and we can maybe provide a little bit of clarity on this issue, and obviously additional work needs to be done to kind of confirm some of your other issues. But what I've got, if everyone can see the screen in front, I've got the landscaping plan that's been submitted. What it shows is a access that's proposed to the GRCA trail along the east side of the property. So this would be Grand River Avenue. Here would be a sidewalk, and then a pathway would come south through the site and then connect at what we're calling a trail node area. That's going to be
Nick, Jameson's on the other side. You're on the wrong side of the building.
Right.
Jameson's to the left. Where's our entry point? Where's our access to the trail?
So on the subject lands itself, we're proposing an access from the buildings here to connect with the separate public access over on the west side.
But where's the access from Jameson?
Maybe that's something else that we need to discuss a little bit further.
So if I
Would
can
you
jump in on
putting
that
that-
point, there was the neighborhood using the access across this property at one time. However, it was crossing private property. It was trespassing. So at that time, back in the previous owners, they did provide an easement through the center of the property for trail access, but it was not included on Jameson Court, as it was trespassing the trail that was being used previously.
May I say something?
Absolutely.
So I'm not sure if you're referring to the same trail that Joanne is referring to. because the trail we used previously went straight up Jameson and right beside Mr. Borisaw's home. It didn't cross over into that other property at all.
Well, I think what we can take back is concerns for access to the GRCA trail from Jameson. I think we can make note of that comment at least at this point, and further to what Councillor Sless has mentioned, discuss that internally and possibly at a second meeting, discuss that a little bit further.
Can we get confirmation this evening? Is everybody that's on this call from the proponents end willing to meet a second time once all of these opinions and concerns and comments have been addressed? Is that a problem for anybody?
I don't think so, John. You know, we're just kind of talking about it internally here. I think we're open to the second meeting. We're open to some private discussions.
Okay.
You know, the point of this was to get some feedback so that we can go back to the drawing board a little bit.
That's right. And I think, Bob, I think what the folks are asking for is they would like to see what that looks like once they've had their say. Then they would like to see how you've reacted to that say. And I think that's what a second meeting would accomplish. So if you're good with that, going forward, I think everybody speaking can assume that what they're saying, there will be some addressing whatever's said in a subsequent meeting from this. That would be terrific. Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Okay, John, we still have 2 more residents that would like to ask questions. We're going to allow these 2 people to ask their questions before we do any follow-ups.
Okay.
Okay, so next we have Lee. Lee, can you hear us?
Yes. Hi, how's everybody doing?
Good. Welcome, Lee.
Good. I actually live at the building, the 6-story building that they just built. And I really love it. I'm a single dad, and it's really nice that it was affordable. And it's just really nice in there. If you guys would go and visit, you guys can see that they did a really good job with the building. All my questions have been answered. I just had that comment.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Lee.
Lee, now we have Nancy LaCours. Nancy, you want to go ahead with your question, please?
Yes. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, sorry. I might echo in here. I had to pull over. I'm driving a school bus to attend this meeting, so I had to pull over tonight to attend it. I'm going to read out a little statement that I made. I just want to clear up some things. I've heard everybody's speech, and this kind of falls into some people. My name is Nancy LaCour. I have raised my family in this area for the last 15 years, which is part we're talking about Jameson Court. I've lived there, and the other part I live now presently Grand River Ave. Since the developers have advanced our community, the amount of crime, homeless people, garbage has been reduced. Now we see families and elderly people walking the trails and enjoying our beautiful community. As a school bus driver in this area, I have seen people taking pride in their homes, making things look nicer because of the way the community is being built. I haven't experienced any issues maneuvering around these streets. And I think there's maybe 9 to 12 streets going up from Grand River Ave. And this is talking about with my big school bus, 40 feet long. I can move her around the corners. I can go around the cars. I can find a place to pull over if I need to. I haven't come to any issues with that so far, and I've been driving for years. Also, nor have I experienced any excessive traffic. I drive in the morning. I come home in the afternoon. I drive in the evenings to pick up the kids. Every kid gets dropped off in time. For me, that tells me we do not have an excessive traffic problem. As a bus driver, because we're all limited by time, and to turn around and move, we were all taught on how to drive. Same with the bus, and I believe I speak for the truck drivers too. In order to get your license, you are trained for all this. Also, I believe by having a traffic lights there's a possibility people could go through the yellow lights. It happens all the time. Being a bus driver, I see it. And hit pedestrians where stop signs already common in the area. They're very common in the area already. As our community is growing and we are in need for more homes, condos, and apartment buildings, as I have 2 daughters myself looking to buy, and my mother also in the area, but there's nothing around, not unless we're looking close to a mill. I also feel that families with children going to university, it's not far from there, that would benefit from this, along with the elderly wanting to downsize into a condo, having a better lifestyle. The trails has provided cleaner, safer lifestyle. Now we can walk the streets at night. We can walk the streets any time of the day, whereas before we could never do this. It was a place for bad drugs and kids to hang out and big grass and stuff. Now we can do that. I don't see any issue in my part being a school bus driver, and I do it every day, with traffic or going up and down the streets, as there's so many streets to get out of Homedale, right up to the main roads. For me, the Grand River is a place for this project. And I believe we should all look back and see how beautiful Grand River got down there. Thank you to the developers. And there's been different developers in doing this. That is my statement I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Our next person who would like to ask a question is Ursula. Ursula, you can go ahead and ask your question.
I don't have any question. I live here 11 years, and you know what? I driving my kids to school. I driving to my job, what is in Homedale, from where coming those big trucks. I hear people complain about this big truck going from the one street to another street, like they must take bigger curve. Before, nobody complained about that. So those factories been here so many years. So why nobody complained before, just right now? Like, I don't have any issue to drive and to stop a little bit, 30 feet or 20 feet. Like not all the time in some big trucks. And honest with you, is driving over there is no issue for me. And I think so people who have the issue, this is the people who don't want to have any apartment buildings here. And for me, before, when I start living here, I saw this property, how this looks, and looks really awful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ursula. We still have Mr. George Garvey. I'm not sure he has a working microphone, so let's see if he can. Mr. Garvey, can you hear us? Let me try and. Oh. I think he's having some technical difficulties.
Do we have a phone-in number that he could try, Darlene?
We do, and I will look that up very quickly.
Fine, if we can't get Mr. Garvey in, can we ask him to send his question in by email or mail, please?
Okay, it looks like everyone has asked their questions. Casey, would you like to?
Sure. So where we move from here is that The applicants and staff have heard your concerns, and the applicants will be taking all of that into consideration. There are still some outstanding staff comments that we need to hear, and there are some departments that have asked for further information. So what will happen from here is the applicants will go back, consider everything they've heard, and bring another submission to us. And as Councillor Sless has suggested, another neighborhood meeting can be held to review any subsequent submissions. Once we've gone through that process, the next hearing after that would be the hearing before the committee of the whole, where council considers the application and whether to approve it or not. So, but as Councillor Sless has suggested, it sounds like there will be another neighborhood meeting. So I will put up my email address. If anyone has, let me just see if I can share this. If anyone has further comments that they would like to make, not sure what you're seeing. Are you seeing my email address? Okay.
Yes.
So that's my email address. If anyone has comments that they would like to make, you can forward them to that email address, and I'll ensure that the applicant and the ward councillors receive your comments. And with that, I'll turn it back to Councillor Utley.
Thank you, Casey. I'd like to thank everybody on behalf of Councillor Sless and myself for showing tonight. And those that couldn't make it, thank you for your letters and phone calls. And also to the viewers looking in, I hope that many of you that have looked in, especially from the Homedale area, that you will find the time to express your concerns and ideas or support. You know, we've heard a mixture of both for and against tonight. There are, I think, I just want to encapsulate the key items that were raised tonight. Traffic issues. This is not uncommon to many developments that Councillor Sless and I have been involved in over the years. Water and sewer, what type of housing, affordable, rental, condo, private ownership, access to the Dyke Trail, landscaping, what size trees and caliper, fence, privacy fence, sewage disposal, construction noise, and this is not just from tonight, this is from the letters that were written in as well. Traffic lights at St. Paul and Grand River Ave, can it be changed from a 6-story to a 3 or 4-story, population density, waste disposal, and access to trail from Jameson. John, I can't think of anything else other than to say thank you to our staff. Casey, you did a great job leading us tonight, and Darlene, great job at getting us all organized, all 8 or 9 Darlenes that were on the screen tonight. Also, the viewers that looked in, our staff, support staff, and the Multani group, and your team as well. We really appreciate the answers that you provided. As Councillor Sless has said, this is the first meeting in a process. Usually, what we've heard tonight is not uncommon to every other development that we hear. There's a lot of NIMBYism sometimes. I hate to use that word, but people don't like change, and it's a natural reaction when developments happen in their neighborhoods. But after the developments are up and building, people are living in them, you rarely hear complaints anymore. People are happy with the end result, and I think that's going to work out good for everyone in the long time. But we shall see. The decision's not been made yet, but your input is very valuable. So, John, you want to say good night as well?
What I would like to say, John, is hopefully moving forward, we get this virus thing a little bit more behind us, and the next meeting can be an in-person meeting. Because it's very difficult. As you can see tonight, there's technical difficulties. I spoke to a number of people that don't have computers, but they wanted, so they called and that type of thing. So if we could have an in-person meeting, probably at Costain Community Center. If we can look towards that, and hopefully we can get approval to do that, I think it would be a much, the participation rate would skyrocket as compared to what we had this evening. So hopefully everybody get your needle so we can get back into person and get to see each other in the skin as opposed to on the screen.